Speaking on the defensive side of the ball, this is the one I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about. Really, really, really excited about this hire. And that is Tony Williams, defensive coordinator from Nebraska. Ended up taking him from, like I said, Nebraska, Matt Rule, head coach there. Black shirt defense, man. So the last 4 years, not even speaking about Nebraska, going back to his days at Syracuse as well, the past 4 years, he's had his defenses within the top 25 in total defense. Tony White, the past 2 years at Nebraska specifically, he had those guys in the top 20 overall in total defense. This year, for sure, this was a crazy stat that kind of stood out to me. So defense for FSU hasn't really been that bad this year. I stated that multiple times, right? I really like what the defense did this year in certain situations. It wasn't great by any imaginable stretch. It wasn't your standard or prototypical FSU defense, but it was an okay defense. The defense was good enough to win more than 2 games. It was more so the offense that put those guys in bad positions. But the biggest issue with the defense was what? The run game, right? The rush defense. We saw it against Florida. The rush defense just wasn't great all year. Miami had a hell of a day rushing, Georgia Tech, Boston College, Notre Dame. This goes on and on, right? So this was a crazy stat that kind of jumped out to me as far as Nebraska defense this year. They allowed 0 rushing touchdowns at home all year. They allowed 0 rushing touchdowns at home all year. That was the first time that has happened since 1939. 1939. So they had 0 rushing yards at home all year. That was very impressive to me as far as what he did this year at Nebraska as far as the run game. Our biggest issue was the run game. Also, his first year at Nebraska was 2023, which was the best statistical year that Nebraska had on the defensive side of the ball since 2011. He was nominated for the Broyles Award at Nebraska. He was also nominated for the Broyles Award, at Syracuse. So, hell, he proved he could do it at Syracuse, got the promotion at Nebraska, proved he could do it at Nebraska. Now he's getting a promotion at FSU as well. He's associate head coach at Nebraska as well, too. This year specifically, they're ranked the 19th defense, 14th in rushing yards. I'm sorry, 14th rushing defense as well. Just kind of going back to his 3 years at Syracuse and just showing you guys how consistent he's been since he's been the main play caller at a P5 level. 3 years at Syracuse, we even saw some of it, and he gave us some fits and some troubles. The 3 years he was at Syracuse, they had the most improved defense in the nation, jumping 93 spots in total defense in 3 years. I'm going to repeat that one more time. In his 3 years at Syracuse, they had the most improved defense in the nation, jumping 93 total spots in total defense within a 3-year span. So the year prior to he got there to his last year at at Syracuse before leaving for Nebraska, they jumped 93 total spots in defense. In 2022 at Nebraska, Nebraska averaged 92.9 rushing yards per game. That was the best that Nebraska has averaged since 1999. You guys remember how elite Nebraska defense was in the late 80s and early 90s, the black shirt defense, things like that. In 2022, that's the best rushing attack they had in over 20 years since 1999. So the proof is in the pudding. As far as what Tony White could bring to the table as a defensive coordinator, I'm really excited about that hire. I like that hire a lot. And I know people have been asking, I might as well address this now. It's been reported as well. Nothing that's been official. Reported. And it's crazy. The Nebraska beat writers, I think their rivals account, their 247 account, reported this, that Tony White will be bringing over his defensive line coach, Terrence Knighton, Terrence Potrose Knighton. If you guys remember, Terrence Knighton was a former NFL player, played for the Denver Broncos. If I'm not mistaken, that's where he made his name at, for the Denver Broncos. Also played a little bit for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Has had a hell of a job as far as recruiting for Nebraska, bringing in some pretty good defensive linemen and things like that. And I haven't watched many Nebraska games at all this year. I'm not going to lie to you, but one of the few games I did watch this past year for Nebraska was the Colorado and Nebraska game, right? They held Colorado 10 points. 10 points. Shador Sanders was 23 for 38 for 244 yards, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. We're talking about Shador that's pretty much been 26 for 27 damn near every game this year. playing at a high level, a bunch of touchdowns, high completion percentage, high QBR. They had them at 19.7 QBR. They had 16 total rushing yards in that game. Their leading rusher for Colorado was 32 yards. I think Shador took a bunch of sacks that game too. He was out under a lot of pressure. Like I said, I didn't watch a lot of Nebraska football this past season, but that one game I did watch, that defensive line had a party in the backfield for sure. So I'm really excited about this hire. I do want to bring in the former FSU fullback James Coleman to the show and